I could actually see the tree coming towards the house. And so I was like, oh my God, oh my God. And so I remember what they taught us in kindergarten, go in the hallway and tuck your head.
All right, now is the time when you're seeing those intense late spring and early summer storms. This past weekend, Rockingham County got hit with heavy winds and rain. Neighbors reported damaged roofs, snapped lumber, blocked doors. While you can't always know how bad a storm is going to be, you can make sure you're prepared. And part of that is to make sure that you're properly insured in case something happens. So today we've got Christopher Cook with Alliance Insurance Services here to talk about all things insurance. We're taking your questions live on air. All you have to do is text us those questions, 336-379-5775. We'll get your question answered. Okay, so we talked about the storms over the weekend, roofs damaged, some doors, all laid out. In what situation would someone's home insurance cover things, especially like the trees that are down?
Sure, pretty much in all of those situations, one of the main perils that homeowners insurance covers is wind damage. So if your property was damaged because of the wind, then your homeowners insurance policy should pay the damage minus your deductible, which we probably all know about. There may be a few exceptions to that, which we can go over, but all of that storm damage should be covered.
All right, and so there's always the question of what happens when it's my neighbor's tree and not my tree that falls on my house? Who pays for it?
Yeah, the damage to your stuff is paid for by your insurance policy. If I can oversimplify it that way. So I'm sorry that your neighbor's tree fell on your property. It was an act of nature. It was unavoidable. It wasn't intentional by your neighbor. That damage to your car or to your home or whatever it may be will be responded to by your insurance policy.
Okay, so you said most of the time all that kind of wind tree damage is covered by insurance. But what happens if there's trees down all over your lawn and that kind of thing, but it didn't actually hit your house?
Yeah, that's why I said most of the time, caveat kind of things, right? If a building wasn't damaged, and although obviously tree cleanup can be expensive, then your homeowner's insurance policy may not pay for that down tree to be cleaned up. That would just be your responsibility. Some of the newer contracts in our state, we call them an HE7 homeowners enhanced product, but nonetheless, they have some tree cleanup coverage for those kinds of instances. But a traditional homeowners insurance policy doesn't pay to clean up the tree if it didn't hit anything else.
Okay. All right, let's talk about homeowners insurance. A lot of people noticed that their homeowners insurance was going up. I think it was something like 7% or so, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, let's talk about why that is.
Sure. Damages are becoming more and more frequent, but because of weather, obviously not just this type of storm that the folks in Rockingham County experienced, but just nationally, we are having more frequent catastrophic claims. When Katrina happened a long time ago now, right? We thought that would be a once in a generational storm. And unfortunately, we have those kinds of storms very often now. So the number of claims is happening more frequently. On top of that, the repairs are more expensive with the inflationary pressures that we've had since the pandemic. So claims have gone up, rates have went up in corresponding percentage.
Okay, just this week, we all did a story about how Allstate and State Farm are no longer going to be writing insurance policies in the state of California. Do you see that spreading?
Well, it scares me quite a bit. Insurance companies are businesses, right? They have to be profitable in order to stay in business. And the state of California has proven to be very, very, very unprofitable for those two carriers, and they've pulled out. Some of that is regulation driven. So thankfully in our country, every single state has a Department of Insurance. By and large, the Department of Insurance in North Carolina does a tremendous job, but they have to work with the carriers. And so if you have bad regulation or regulators who are very tough to deal with, sometimes insurance companies choose to pull out of those states.
Okay, well, we've got a couple.
I'm nervous about it.
You are. Okay, well, we've got a couple of questions that deal with North Carolina specifically. Someone's claiming that North Carolina has the highest insurance rates, and why does it feel like every 6 months insurance in North Carolina is increasing?
I would have to argue with them that North Carolina indeed does not have the highest insurance rates. As a matter of fact, we have lowest 5 in the country for auto insurance premiums. and we are in the lower quartile for homeowners insurance premiums. However, they're right. It does feel like rates are going up frequently. Milk, eggs, bread, cheese, gasoline are the kinds of things that I say. And unfortunately, rates have went up with the cost of all other goods.
There's another question about North Carolina insurance specifically. It says, on my policy, there's a North Carolina surcharge along with the underinsured, uninsured part of my policy. What is this?
That is a North Carolina reinsurance facility surcharge. It is part of some of the regulatory authorities that go on in our state to make sure that all of us have access to liability insurance. In our state, again, we're talking about regulation, and that may bore some of you to death, but you have to be able to buy auto insurance in our state. You are required to have it, and carriers are required to sell it to you. That surcharge helps keep that reinsurance facility running.
Okay, and so there's a lot of different ways to kind of cut costs when it comes to car insurance. There's a few things that you have to have. So you have to have liability.
Yep.
But you don't have to carry a really high policy on that.
You don't have to. In our state, the minimum limits. Now, remember, I'm an insurance guy, and I get scared when people start about that. But the minimum limits in our state are $30,000 per any injury you cause to another party. I would encourage folks to have more than that, but that is a cost you can cut. On your comprehensive and collision coverages, you could choose to have a higher deductible, meaning, hey, I'll take on more of the risk so that my insurance costs will go down, and that would drive your premiums down. The biggest discount that's out there is packaging your policies together. So we've mentioned a couple of carriers' names. If your auto and your home and maybe even your life insurance were with one company, you would get multi-policy discounts. A discount that a lot of folks don't know about is paying the policy for a year at a time. And while that may be a large chunk of money going out at once, it could save you as much as 10% over the course of the year. So that's like getting a free month of insurance. And there's a lot of other discounts out there. That's certainly search for the discounts.
Okay, and that's something that would mean that you would actually have to call your insurance agent. And most of us, we get the policy in the mail and we're like, gosh, it went up a little bit, and then we stick it in our file box or whatever, and we go on our way. And we just complain about the fact that it's gone up.
Yeah, you'd have to communicate. Believe it or not, there's agencies out there that will text with you or email with you or even chat on their website with you. But yes, you'll have to communicate with someone to ask some questions and let a professional help you discover those discounts.
All right, we're going to take more of your questions after we come back from the break. 336-379-5775.